Dominus vobiscum, friends, and welcome to Donut Sunday, a podcast for lay Catholics. I'm your host, Jim, Donut Master and Starbucks Philosopher. This is episode 1 of our interview show, and today our special guest is Jarrett, a good friend of mine. He's a school psychologist, and in today's talk we discuss different practical tips for living out your faith in the workplace, being a Catholic rock star, and humility, among other things. So without further ado, enjoy the podcast. Thanks for joining us here. And we'll start the interview with my friend Jarrett here. Jarrett, good to see you again.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, you too.
I appreciate you coming on the show to be kind of the inaugural interviewee on this. This is awesome.
Yeah, I'm honored.
Yeah, it's
So thanks for having me.
fantastic. So I might have said a little bit about you in kind of the introduction, but could you introduce yourself to the audience, kind of who you are, what you do for a living, what your family life is like, that kind of thing?
Yep. Yeah. Hey everyone who's listening. My name's Jarrett, and I work as a school psychologist in Northern Illinois. I work at an elementary school and a couple different high schools, pretty much doing evaluations and helping the special education teams with their IEPs and placing students in different programs up there.
Awesome. And you mentioned IEP. For people, listeners that might not know what that is, could you say that?
Oh yeah, that's jargon. It's individualized or individual education program or plan. If you are, at least in Illinois, if you are a student in special education, that means that you have an IEP.
Gotcha. Very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. And I guess how long have you been working in that particular context or environment?
This is my third year after my internship. I had 2 years of grad school plus a year-long internship, and this is my third year
Awesome.
after that.
Fantastic. And I guess since Donut Sunday, this show is kind of all about lay Catholicism and kind of what our working lives or family lives are can kind of nourish and be nourished by our spiritual lives. What does your spiritual life kind of look like? I mean, when it comes to mass and prayer, spiritual reading, devotions, like saints that you're particularly devoted to, just could you give us kind of a snapshot of that?
Yeah, well, if you had asked me before COVID, my answer would have been a little different.
Sure.
Um,
It's impacting all of
my,
us for sure.
yeah, and the rates are I don't know. That's a whole. You could probably do a whole podcast on that.
Hmm.
Um, but there's a lot of people in my area that are affected. So we're actually, I mean, in terms of just mass itself, um, my wife and I have been a couple of times. We have a young daughter, and that makes it tricky with having to stay in one spot. So sometimes we'll watch mass online, which, I mean, obviously, if it weren't for COVID, that would be a different story. But
Sure.
and my wife's pregnant, and so there's different things. People will say it's not a big deal. There are other people that say so. I
Right.
guess science is just, I don't know. So I mean that's, I know that's a whole tangent, but
Hmm.
so I mean we obviously we go to mass every Sunday, or at least now we're watching mass, and I've gone a couple weekdays when it's kind of thinned out there. And in terms of just a regular prayer life, I typically try to wake up early to and the first thing I do in the morning is I mean it sounds kind of cheesy, but I try to start the day with just good morning Jesus, and I have a little offering. I go my Jesus through the Immaculate Heart of Mary, just a little prayer that I'll say, and then of course maybe not everyone has their phone by their bed, so I've got an app that I can read the readings, and I'm so tired that I don't remember them halfway through the day, but I read through the readings, and And so, I mean, Jose Maria Escriva would probably say like heroic minute, you gotta get right out of bed. But I'm like, I'll just stay in bed and read the readings, you know. So I'll just kind of let that marinate for a little bit, and try to start my day that way as opposed to flipping through Facebook or something. And then throughout the day, I mean, particularly I'll try to call to mind the gospel when I'm at work. Sometimes there can be some tense situations, just people getting upset, this or that, and I've got my rosary in my pocket. So, I mean, not to be superstitious, but having that reminds me that that it's going to be okay. I've been praying with Psalm 23 a lot. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's in the different schools that I'm at, I need to wake up early to get to the different schools at different times. So my routine kind of depends on the school I'm at that day. So it's kind of, sometimes I need to get up a little earlier. Sometimes I'll get up a little bit later. So I try to find some time for prayer after our daughter goes to bed. It's kind of sparse, honestly. It's about 15 minutes where I'll sit, usually with the Psalms, and sometimes I'll do spiritual reading, but if I can just get 15 minutes, then I'll just try to have that be quiet time. Sometimes I like to just to be quiet. Spiritual reading is something that I like to add to that, but if I can give God that quiet 15 minutes, I try to make it a point to do that. And sometimes it's really crazy, and then sometimes I don't do the best job. But ideally, that's what I'm shooting for on a daily basis.
That's awesome. And I mean, you mentioned kind of a lot of things there, because I mean, just with COVID, at the time that we're recording this, we're still kind of in the midst of school going back to session now that, especially with you working in a school and multiple different schools, young ones at home, dealing with the pregnancy, like there's a lot of different things to juggle there, I think. Mm-hmm. And I mean, when I look at my life too, I mean, I've got a young one. I'm not sure if the microphone's picking up him crying a little bit in the background, but it's just, there's a lot of things to kind of manage, and I think from the spiritual perspective, it's kind of a tough thing to balance, and I think you'd probably agree with that, right? I mean,
yeah, just totally
try to find time for the different things, and with you especially, just having sort of multiple routines that you might need to kind of cycle through. But it's cool to hear about, kind of how you try to organize the day and kind of break things into little chunks here, try and have that 15 minutes at the end of the day. That's really cool.
Oh, yeah, thanks. Yeah. Try. I don't always do the best job. But yeah.
True. And I mean, we are practicing Catholics. I mean, practicing to get
yeah,
better. Practicing, yeah, for sure. And I mean, I can certainly relate to, having the young one that was born relatively recently. It's just like, it's a whole new set of routines that you're trying to kind of find your way through at the same time as kind of going through this whole new world that we have with, just different lockdowns and procedures and masks and the like. So appreciate you talking about that a little bit.
Yeah.
So I guess kind of for our next question, what do you think that your faith life contributes to your work life and your family life?
Mm-hmm. I'll start with the work. It's tough being in a public school, obviously, because I mean Christmas break needs to be winter break, and I mean that's across the board, not necessarily where I work, just in general. I think that where I work is, for the most part, the people are, or at least generally like-minded. If not Catholic, then don't be a jerk. I guess that's the new morality. Just don't be a jerk.
Fair.
But it seems like there's been a couple seasons of my life where I've understood my work differently. And when I was in college, I basically wanted to be Matt Maher I wanted to be a Catholic rock star, and because my guitar, I loved playing guitar, and that was going to be, if you find a job you love, then you'll never work a day in your life. But I mean, I was watching a Father Mike Schmitz video, and he was saying, if work is what you wouldn't do if they didn't pay you to do it, and that's okay. I mean, there are some people that absolutely love what they do, but I think it's a trap to be totally fulfilled by your work. I mean, it can be fulfilling at some level, and but then to say where I was for a long time, and I'm trying to kind of dig myself out of it, is, man, I just hate this. I got into this job because my wife and I got engaged, and I had a bachelor's in psychology. I was like, wow, I don't know what I'm going to do. And then a professor said, why don't you look into school psychology, get your summers off? And I didn't really know anything about it. And now when I have these hard days, I can be tempted to let that define me. So my faith has really helped me to be a better school psychologist, because I can be a kind of an anxious person by nature and very scrupulous, and so my faith and like that Psalm 23, I try to keep that in my mind throughout the day. Like the first part, I just breeze over all the time, like the Lord is my shepherd. Like, well, the fact that like that's it. I don't even need I need Psalm 23, but I don't need the whole. That first bit, I pray that all the time, or I just repeat that in my head, because it's like everyone's got a shepherd. Like sometimes it's my iPhone, but then it's like, well, if the Lord is your shepherd, then my worst fears, even if they were to come true and I were to get fired or anything like this, if I really believe that, then that gives me a peace throughout the day. And I think it helps me to be a better psychologist, because it's like I put on my mask on the plane, and now I can help other people. I don't always have to be covering myself and the CYA thing. I can it frees me up to get out of my own head, when a lot of my work is making decisions, poring over all this data. My faith helps me. My identity's not in there, and yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah,
and I guess I kind of have two thoughts on what you said, and at this point, we'll see if I can remember those two thoughts. But like when you said, you have different seasons in your life, and especially coming out of college, I know that I kind of had this feeling that I needed to be like. There was a time where I very seriously discerned the priesthood, and there was a time when I went to interview with Focus, the Fellowship of Catholic University Students, and it's like, man, if I can just do that, then I'll be working for the church, and that's when I'm going to be able to do that I'm really going to be able to do some good. And it's like, I think that that's kind of a dangerous way to think in a certain respect, and I think it's something that really pushed me to kind of make this podcast in the first place. I don't know if that was your experience, but like you said, you kind of wanted to be like the Matt Maher, the Catholic rock star sort of a person. It's like, I think that there are a lot of ways to really build up the church, even working in a secular context. So I was really glad that you touched on that, because I think it's something that a lot of people feel and question about, particularly as they're kind of coming out of college with this very expensive degree and looking to kind of put it into practice and try to figure out what's what, So I really appreciate you bringing up kind of that sort of, kind of counterbalancing in your life and kind of trying to figure out exactly where the balance is, so to speak. So
yeah,
that's perfect.
That was definitely my experience. You go to the what do you call the Focus Summit, or there's the leadership summit, but then there's also like, the win events, not so much the build.
Uh-huh.
And that, I mean, that was my sophomore year. That was really powerful for me in adoration. And then from then on, when they talked about working for the church, or whenever that was brought up, or at least in my mind, I never really laid it out for myself, but I always kind of felt like if you were really a good Catholic, then you would be working for the church. And I felt that way all through college. I mean, I did. I was involved in this summer. It's kind of like an evangelization program, Totus Tuus, which was fantastic. And a lot of the people there, were from Franciscan, and I was like, man, maybe I should have gone to Franciscan. And they were all, I mean, not all of them. They were either seminarians or they were youth ministers, or they were going to be youth ministers. And I was like, I felt like I didn't really belong. And I'm sure, everybody feels that, but I felt like a bad Catholic for a while. And because they talk about your vocation as, your job's your little v vocation. You're like, well, vocation is pretty important, so I don't want to be doing something where I can't, preach the gospel at all times.
Right.
So, I mean, yeah, that was just to echo you. That was definitely my experience for a long time, especially right after college, and feeling like I had to kind of compromise my faith to do something that wasn't explicitly helping the Catholic Church.
Yeah. And I mean, for the listeners out there, I hope that they kind of don't hear what we're not saying. I mean, to be in focus or to be, a youth minister, like, that's all fantastic stuff. But I mean, not everybody is called to that. And I think that we kind of make a mistake when we think that, maybe I'm less than, or like you said, that I'm not a good Catholic if I'm not working in these contexts, that there's tremendous dignity and tremendous value and grace working in a normal 9-to-5 code monkey job. Like that's the fantastic thing to do, and everybody can find holiness no matter where they're working. So that's good stuff. Yeah, and I mean, the other thing that you mentioned too was regarding, specifically working for the church or finding something where you really, you love it, every minute of it, and, you do it even if they weren't paying you. And it's like, I think about that kind of thing, and it's like, for the majority of the human history, that hasn't even been a possibility for most people. Like, that's a very unique thing to the modern time where you can even think about doing something like that. And that's not to say don't look for it, but I think that it's a valuable thing to kind of keep in mind, that it's not like if I miss this one thing, then, everything's going to go up in smoke, and I mean, I might as well just, I don't even know, like, just, I'm wasting my life entirely at that point. Like,
Yeah. I mean, I know you were asking about how does my spiritual life feed into my family. I don't want to forget about that, but I mean, I'm with you, and I want to echo your point about, if I was thinking about being a focused missionary. I mean, I never went and interviewed. That's not to say that I'm not assuming that they would have said, yeah, let's do it. I probably said no. But, I mean, that is fantastic. I just, I wouldn't want anyone to feel bad if they weren't doing that. And that's what I was trying to say with that. But there's one other thing I wanted to throw in there. I mean, when I said I just hate my job, there's parts of my job that I do very much enjoy. I think the part that I always try to run from, and I still got to get myself away from it, is I just don't want to suffer. I don't want to experience the cross in any way. And I think if I wanted to find my dream job because I didn't want to have to suffer. I mean, I didn't want to have to do, sweat my brow. I'm usually not sweating as I'm sitting at my desk. I got to drink less Dr. Pepper, but I just didn't want to suffer, and I kind of wanted to make my own heaven here. That's not really, what I need to do. But
For
I
sure.
wanted to answer your other question about spiritual life in the family.
Yeah,
If that's
please.
okay.
Yeah.
I was just reading the other day about where, well, I'm going to get carried away here. I got to be careful. Where Jesus is saying, like, if you love brother or mother or more than me, then you're not. I'm like, ooh, dang. So I don't want to say that your family is God. I mean, yeah, you obviously shouldn't worship your family, but then you've got the Mother Teresa saying, like, if you really want to do something, I'm totally paraphrasing here.
It's all good.
I mean, if you like, go home and love your family. Just love your family, and a lot of times I think I was going to say, God, I will serve you anywhere. Like, I go to Tanzania or Djibouti or whatever. That's a country. I'm pretty.
I think so. Yeah.
It's like a province. So. I don't really know geography like at all. It's kind of a running joke with my wife and I.
That's fair.
But I mean, it's like it's right in front of me. Just love your family and do a good job in working to make money. That's a valid reason to work, and you find joy in the day, and you trust God that any suffering that comes your way, He's permitting that for your benefit. And you just, now that we have a daughter and a son on the way, just because I'm a dad doesn't mean I get to stop being a kid, in the sense that I need to stop, trusting God. I think the more we grow up, the more our soul needs to kind of stop growing up. In the sense of I need God, and that. I mean, I'm trying to tie it into the family here.
No, I mean, to have a sense of childlike dependence on God, for sure. There's a holiness and humility.
I mean, the other thing I'll say about the family is, sometimes I can get all these big ideas about, we're going to do this, and our house is, I'm like, where can we put our little oratory, and which is great, and we're trying to pray with our daughter, and she's not even 2. So I've learned that, and so I'm trying to just simplify things and do one thing consistently. Like, my wife and I will, after we put our daughter to bed, we'll read the gospel, which honestly, I mean, sometimes you get a really long gospel, like Good Friday, but other than that, it takes like 2 minutes, and there's so many apps on your phone, and you just discuss it, and oftentimes that leads to other discussions, whereas, like, if we don't, that sometimes, other times we'll just watch Hulu and kind of look at our phones, and it's funny how the just being faithful to that, actually, that makes me happier at the end of the day than if I was just staring at the screen.
100%. Yeah, that's awesome that you're trying to incorporate prayer even when they're so young and probably don't really 100%, have the vocabulary or 100% understand. But I mean, that's kind of beautiful to raise them with those family traditions that, I mean, in a lot of senses seem so lacking today. Like, it's just, I feel like as a society in general, we do kind of have a tendency to lose a lot of those old traditions and good quality family time, so that's beautiful. And I think, like, kind of flipping that question on its head, I don't know if this has been your experience, but at least for me, like, fatherhood has really stretched me in a lot of ways that I had never thought about or anticipated before. And like, I think that, you know, yes, 100% I'm a lot more tired than I was before the baby came along. But I think that I've built up a lot of virtues, and I've had a lot of opportunities to build up virtues that I would never have had I not become a father. And I think that just kind of the ordinary circumstances of the everyday with your family, like, they just provide so many circumstances where it's like, I can die to myself in this little way, and I can be more attentive to others. Like if I'm just, sitting there while my wife is, feeding the baby or whatever, I can take a look over and be like, oh, there's a couple of dishes over there. Let me go wash those. It's just, there's so many opportunities for little simple acts of love like that, and little simple ways to grow in virtue. I think that as our life gets a little bit more complex with children and stuff like that, it helps to simplify a lot of the other things and kind of go back to basics. Because as great as, like, I love listening to things like lectures from the Thomistic Institute and stuff. So if you guys are listening, go give them a follow on YouTube or wherever, because their stuff is awesome. But it's like, that stuff is great, but, it's one of the letters of Paul, if I can do all of these great works, but I don't have love, then I'm, a clashing cymbal or a resounding gong or something like that. And it's 100% true. So amen to family life, man. It's awesome stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then I guess kind of moving into the next topic, you mentioned before that you really enjoy your guitar. I know that music is something that's really super important to you, just from our friendship over the years. So what kind of like hobbies and leisure activities do you take part in? And how do you see those kind of like impact your faith life, your family life? Like how does that work into the rest of your life, I guess?
Yeah, I really enjoy playing guitar and singing. I don't sing a lot. Well, I kind of hum. And in college, I would go into the church on campus, and Monsignor would give me the keys actually, and so it'd be like 9 or 10 at night, and it'd be, nobody in there, save all the angels and saints and our Lord, but I could sing at the top of my lungs, but I very much enjoy playing guitar, and our daughter likes listening, and that's been one good way to die to myself. Like my grandmother just passed away. One of my grandmothers.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks. I appreciate that. Sorry for bringing that up on the podcast here, but I appreciate that. She music was a big part of her life, and she left my brother and I some money, and she wanted it specifically go to instruments, which is classic grandma. So bought this really nice guitar, and there's a temptation to want to, obviously I don't want to like roast it over a fire, but when it's out, my daughter is really interested in it. So there's little handprints on it, and at first I was like, oh, don't touch the guitar. But it's good for me for as nice as that is, to have some meet in the middle detachment. Like I can't, what I love about the guitar, if I just hold on to it and I keep it in its case, and I never let anybody enjoy it within reason, then I lose it. Like the guitar loses what I love about it. In some sense I'm seeing something about the God in that. And I think C.S. Lewis talks about music is, any music that really touches us is just kind of just a whisper of something that's kind of floated down from heaven. So being able to detach myself from that has been really good. And I wish I were more of a reader. I have all these awesome books, like I have a Robert Frost collection of poems, and I bought this Great Adventure Bible when COVID started to it's got the Bible timeline, and I'm stuck in Numbers. Gotta get through Numbers. So that is something leisurely for me. One thing that I'm almost embarrassed because I feel like it's for little kids. I have a Nintendo Switch.
Mm-hmm.
I love to play some video games. Obviously, it's been good for me because I don't have nearly as much time to. We're not sponsored by Nintendo, by the way. I mean, I assume you're not.
Last I checked, I wasn't, but
Yeah, that'd be pretty sweet. But to say a little bit more about that, I've never been a shoot 'em up kind of gamer, and we don't have to discuss the ethics of Call of Duty right now.
For another time, perhaps.
Right. But I mean, there's some spiritual warfare out there. I think you could make a case. But one thing that was good is I just when I play guitar or when I do read, that uplifts me. I feel like I'm ready to go back to the world just a better person. And sometimes the video games, I don't know if it was because I've just been playing video games for a long time, and when I was a kid, I was just, essentially a pagan. I was baptized. I wasn't really a pagan, but I just get so absorbed. And video games, I don't know if it's just the screen or what it is, but I can. Sometimes when I'm playing the video games, I don't always that free time doesn't always leave me coming back to the world as a better person. I've kind of just vegetated for a while, and recently I bought a game that was kind of just a couple entries in the series continued from a game that I played when I was a lot younger, and is Fire Emblem. I don't know if you ever heard of that, but
I think I've heard of it. Yeah.
And when I was a kid, I loved the adventure and the kind of the noble battle. I mean, there's a battle out there to fight. I mean, Jesus fights, but not. I mean, not in the sense that you would expect. But there's a battle there, and sometimes I think it's more serious than battles that we usually talk. Well, we could get off into. I'm not talking about just war or anything like that, but there's a serious and something about that, like Lord of the Rings or this that game. I love just the good versus evil, and but as the series has continued, it's gotten more complicated, and you can play as the bad guys, and the good guys aren't really the good guys, and the animation is not. I mean, now they've moved into the teen realm, and there's some suggested themes. So I bought this game, and as I was playing it, thinking, this really is not a great thing, and so I just ended up selling it. And I mean, I know that might seem kind of like an odd story, but it was really good for me to just be honest about in my free time. It's like this game in particular is not something that I would want to play with my daughter, and so it's really not something that's going to be good for our family. And so now we got Super Mario Party. We can play that together, and my daughter loves cars, so she loves playing Mario Kart. And I find that I'm much happier. There's not this kind of turning inward, like this is Dad's thing. This is his.
Sure.
I mean, obviously I have things that are my own, but that was something that I wasn't really too proud of, and so I just I just got rid of it. So there was. Just trying to be honest with myself in my leisure. So I'm trying to cut back on the games. I played a little bit of Legend of Zelda earlier today for a couple minutes. So anyway, yeah, again, not sponsored by Nintendo.
Not yet. But no, I think that everything that you laid out there is really fantastic because, I mean, I think that you're right. There are certain leisure activities that I do that I feel like they kind of have me turn in on myself, and I don't leave them feeling uplifted, refreshed, inspired, ready to go get it again, So I definitely feel that same way with you. I mean, I was a child of the Sega Genesis back when I was growing up, so I totally understand that, because some of my fondest memories from my childhood were me and my dad playing through something like Streets of Rage.
Streets of Rage.
That was the one thing that we would always play together. He would come home and we'd play through it for the 1,020,000,000th time, but like he was always there and we were there together cracking jokes and having fun and everything. So definitely legitimate, but it's always a good thing to kind of do a little bit of a time audit on how we spend our leisure time, because there are so many different ways that it can be frittered away, especially nowadays. And I think too, like with music too, I think when you play in front of people, I mean, maybe this has been your experience, but it's just like there's something special about being able to share something that's really near and dear to you with a group of people, live. Like obviously we're not really doing it so much right now in the time of, the Rona, as it were. But it's just like, for example, one of the things that I really enjoy is performing magic. And I know that you know that, and you've seen me perform a couple of times in different places, but it's like, I don't know, to be able to, especially with magic, I find like to be able to leave somebody with a mystery, which is something that we don't really have nowadays in life. Like if you have a question, you just Google it immediately. When you have, I think that there's a little bit of a lack of wonder nowadays. And I think that being able to share that through magic is something that's really been immensely inspiring and uplifting for me. And I'm sure that you probably feel something of the same thing with music, probably in a little bit of a different way, I would think, maybe. But, just to be able to play beautiful music for people, I think that's... Oh, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, sorry to cut you off. I agree with you. Being able to play for people, especially playing for your family and stuff, it's hard. It's almost like a just condensed version of like you go back to your old high school friends. I mean, I wasn't really like lighting up and going to bars in high school, but your friends in high school, you see them later after I had my reversion, and they're like, dude, I don't really know who you are. And I was trying not to be embarrassed, because I was a different person, and I don't want to be embarrassed about my faith, but to talk to them about this faith that I had received, there was like they knew a part of me. They knew the not so good stuff, and it was hard. It's hard to be vulnerable with people that you know. And I think the same thing goes for music. I'm trying to share something, but those are the people that know you the best. So there's really nowhere to hide. But then if you can kind of peel that away, and knowing that your family's not going to judge you, I mean, hopefully that's just like that wonder that you're talking about, and that mystery. I mean, it's like playing music like that and sometimes with your loved ones. I mean, it's just like you're kind of nibbling on the Holy Spirit. There's like something there that there's like the peace that the world can't give, that you're kind of sharing in. And yeah, it's really a special thing. When you divorce Jesus from the music, it starts to get empty. But if you try to go for that purity of intention, there's just something really special there.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's awesome. Yeah, and I guess we're kind of winding down in terms of the interview here. I guess I got one last question for you. And I mean, this is kind of a big one. So if you could pick one challenge that you think is like the biggest challenge that lay Catholics face out in the world today, what do you think? What do you think that is?
That's a good question. I had an answer for you, and I should have written it down. I thought, yeah, it's a good answer.
That's all good.
I think the biggest challenge for lay Catholics, well, one challenge for me, and I would imagine um, for for others, I'll just take a guess there. There's obviously a lot, but um, I would say being honest with yourself. Um, a lot of people that I work with, that kind of a theme that keeps coming up is, if you want to have peace, especially in your job, whatever it is, um, then I'm gonna go off on a tangent here.
It's all
Um,
good.
Sometimes the response is, don't worry about it. It's not your fault. You didn't do anything wrong. Um, which is half true. I mean, sometimes when I'm doing an evaluation, I make a mistake, and I think the implication is if you did make a mistake, if it really was your fault, um, then you should freak out. But it's not your fault, so don't freak out. But it's no matter what. I mean, Jesus and His mercy. I mean, there's the peace that the world can't give there, and I think it's tempting for Catholics to listen. It's tempting for me to listen to the world. I guess the world being Facebook, um, and not be honest with myself, not listen to my conscience, not really know myself. Like just like you were saying with family life, um, I you can find messages for whatever you want. Before I was talking to someone the other day, and it kind of became apparent at a certain point that he thought that the authority or the role of the father in a house was really to just kind of, he didn't say this explicitly, but kind of just wield some sort of authority. I know this is a podcast for another time, and in a way that I thought he was missing the point. I tried to kind of appeal to his conscience and say, I don't really think that's what Jesus meant. Like, the great thing about being a Catholic is, I mean, it's kind of hard sometimes. I mean, if anywhere you look, there's a cross, but there's like Jesus there's a crucifix, and that's kind of the main thrust of being Catholics. And I think if we're not honest with ourselves, we start to look away from the cross. But I mean, I don't want to go off on another tangent. I can go down these rabbit holes, but my point with the fatherhood thing was, obviously being a father is, I mean, more about hanging on the cross for your family than, and I think there's in a sort of a mysterious sense, you can kind of participate in some sort of authority in that sense, but it comes from a place of really allowing yourself to be crucified like that, in the simple things.
Right.
So I know that answer was a lot of different things, but it's easy with your cell phone to not to just distract yourself, and I think the big challenge is not being honest.
For sure. Yeah. And I mean, we have the screen, which is kind of our window to the world nowadays. It seems like it's like, instead of looking out the window, people look into the screen instead. And
Yeah.
it's easy to be deceived at that point. And I mean, I'll go back to the magic thing for a second. And I mean, like, I've seen a lot of magic performances, and it's like, I've found that the easiest person to fool is yourself, honestly. And I mean, I'm not like digging at a lot of magicians out there, but it's like, it's when you see other people performing, sometimes it becomes very clear that it's like, there's a little bit of self-deception going on too. People will come out and they'll act very, cocky sometimes or something like that, and it's like, I don't know. It's very hard to be honest with yourself, and like you said, to kind of be raw in that certain sense. to kind of look at yourself as you are and say, yes, this is my role, and I'm going to, there's plenty of good things, there's plenty of joy and laughter, but there are also moments where there's going to have to be tears and difficulty and self-sacrifice. And I think it's a really good point to remember that we're easily deceived, and it's easy to deceive ourselves nowadays. And I hope that kind of piggybacked off of what you were saying.
Oh no, absolutely. I mean, there's a million things that you could say. I find myself being distracted, and I don't mean to sound like the classic Catholic, like woe is me. Like, on the contrary, just there's good news. Like, being honest with yourself means, I'm really not everything that I need to be. But I mean, that's a hard thing to admit. I think Fulton Sheen says it's hard to crawl to the foot of the cross, but it's certainly harder to hang there. I mean, Jesus gets to be your everything, your shepherd at that point. And so if you can kind of get through if I'm honest with myself, I'm not doing the greatest job, but there's always grace. So.
Absolutely. And that's a fantastic way to kind of end the note. I think that's a very inspirational point to go off of, that God's grace provides for us. Even when we're not exactly doing the greatest job, God's there is to lift us up and make sure that we're on the right path, providing us grace and everything. And with that, I think we can pretty much close up the interview. So again, my guest today was Jarrett. Thanks again, Jarrett, for doing this. I really appreciate it, especially on the inaugural one.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Awesome.
And so that concludes our first episode of the interview show. Thanks a lot for joining us here. If you found this information and this content to be a blessing to you, something that has been uplifting or good, please feel free to give it a like, a share, a subscribe, or whatever it is on whatever platform that you're listening to us on. And feel free to share it with someone that you care about. Until next time, stay in the state of grace. God bless, friends.